That only happens in spy novels and, as it turns out, in the Trump administration. Trump found out that Tucker, as reported to him by the CIA, was secretly negotiating with the Iranian leadership. Moreover, Tucker is telling the Iranians what he has learned about Trump's intentions to attack. The CIA even started preparing a dossier on Tucker regarding betrayal and showing interest in a potential enemy of the United States.
When Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, a theocratic dictator who ruled the country with an iron fist for 37 years, was killed in his bunker along with a large number of Iran's top command. They should never have gathered in one place. It seemed very dangerous in the midst of a war, and Ayatollah was becoming more and more reclusive. He lived in a bunker that was so deep underground that the elevator ride required it took a full 5 minutes to reach him, which made the possibility of striking and eliminating Ayatollah extremely rare. How did it happen that the Ayatollah ended up in such a vulnerable position in the presence of so many high-ranking leaders of the country?
They managed to convince the Ayatollah that there was no danger, that he could calmly come up, leave the bunker with his family and his aides, gather the leaders, both military and political, in one place, since there was no danger at all. Why did the Ayatollah decide there was no danger? It's interesting to find out how Tucker Carlson got involved in this.
We're in the Armada, where an entire armada of Israeli bombs, so-called bunker busters, could rain down on this facility, striking all the structures and ensuring complete structural destruction, including the Khamenei complex, which turned out to be the most damaged as a result of these strikes. But again, why did they feel the need to all gather at the same time and together in a place that was above ground, or at least vulnerable to bunker-busting bombs? I mean, you don't have bombs that can go through the center of the earth. If you're in a facility where taking the elevator down takes a whole 5 minutes, then, man, you're completely safe. Did President Trump really pull off one of the greatest counterintelligence operations in human history?
Yes, it was a powerful psychological operation. Tucker Carlson was strongly opposed to the war, and Trump invited him to a meeting in the Oval Office. There, having a heartfelt conversation, Trump told Tucker not to worry, that he was bluffing, that there would be no attack, and the deployment of naval squadrons. It's just pressure on Iran to get them to agree to sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty, not to develop or produce nuclear weapons. Trump told Tucker about his plans, about future negotiations, about how he would put pressure on Iran and on Israel as well. In other words, he gave Tucker the full impression that everything was moving toward a peaceful resolution of this issue, and that the troop movements were just a ruse, and that neither the U.S. nor Israel were even planning to attack Iran. Tucker immediately reported this to his contacts in Iran.
By arranging the meeting with Tucker and knowing that this meeting would serve as a signal to the Iranians that nothing threatened them and that no one intended to harm them. But what many people suspect, and what I believe can never be proven, or at least won't be proven anytime soon, is that Tucker, who here admits to communicating with the Iranians. And what does that mean? It means communicating with the Iranian government. And what is the Iranian government? Well, the Iranian government is the Ayatollah. He is the supreme leader. Everyone says that Donald Trump used Tucker to gather all the Iranian leadership in one place because they felt so confident. They were all killed, literally, within 24 hours after Tucker's meeting with Trump.
Tucker was absolutely furious. He even said that what Trump did was inhumane and terrible. Mainly, of course, he was worried that the Iranians might think that he, well, let's say, took part in luring Ayatollah and his whole family out from underground, where they couldn't be reached.
He knew full well that Tucker was back.
He knew Tucker was passing information to the Iranians through unofficial channels. Essentially, Trump used Tucker as an unwitting counterintelligence agent to convince Khamenei that he was bluffing, that nothing would happen. Trump managed to eliminate Khamenei due to Tucker's arrogance, and now he's facing legal issues.
After the interview with Putin, after the failed sneaky visit to Israel and the statement that Israel plans to change its patron, meaning to abandon the U.S. and choose India, well, it's absolutely absurd, right? After his statement about a worldwide Jewish conspiracy, his support for Qatar and Iran, he became so convinced of his own invulnerability that he openly violated the laws of the United States of America and acted just like Rosenberg. If you remember those who gave information on building the atomic bomb to Stalin. By the way, they were executed for that, but Tucker won't be executed. Although, on the other hand, maybe he should have been, right? And now let's talk about why they're heading to Iran. Right now, 2,500 Marines and U.S. Navy landing ships are sailing and approaching. Although we've heard many times that there won't be, as we say, our boots on the ground in Iran. Well, first of all, we won't believe the words of propagandists anymore. We didn't believe them before, and now we definitely won't. And secondly, well, maybe a separate piece of Iran isn't considered part of mainland Iran. And technically, there won't be boots on the ground in Iran. But you'll find out more about that very soon. And at the end, ladies and gentlemen, at the end, there's a piece of news. Well, not really news, but a real treat, I would even say. A little flower, a real highlight. You'll be really, really pleased. The strike on Kharg Island was the first move in the chess game called control of oil flows. Kharg is Iran's main oil terminal, through which about 90% of its exports pass. I mean oil exports. And it was precisely the military facilities and the desalination plant that the United States recently struck, without touching the oil infrastructure at all. The goal is to suppress the obvious, so to speak, power and to get the population out of there. Not to remove them physically, but simply, if there's no desalinated water, what are they supposed to do there? They have to leave. A day before the strike, it became known that the amphibious assault ship Tripoli, carrying 2,500 Marines, was moving toward Iran. The official statement was as follows. The purpose of its movement is to strengthen the deterrence of Iran and ensure freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz. I wonder how 2,500 Marines sitting on board a ship can ensure freedom of navigation. Maybe we'll be boarding ships like pirates? And what will the amphibious assault ship do to deter Iran? Both of those are offensive ground elements. That's 2,500 people who can be brought to the shore and landed under the cover of the firepower of other ships, helicopters, combat aircraft, aircraft carriers, and so on. Along with the Tripoli, several smaller amphibious ships go together so they can land simultaneously in several places, or from different sides of the island, let's say, if it's an island. And this is an island.
But really controls it.
But in reality, it controls the fate of this war, since Kharg Island, Iran's oil stronghold, turned out to be completely vulnerable. Although I wouldn't say completely vulnerable. President Trump, back in 1998, long before his presidency, talked about striking Kharg Island to hit Iran.
Long before becoming president many years ago, in the early 80s, Trump said that Iran could be easily stopped if you strike this very Kharg Island. So this idea is not new either for the world or for Trump.
And why would he do that? This is about 18.5 miles.
Why would he do that? This island is about 18.5 miles off the coast of Iran. It's Iran's main oil stronghold. About 90% of the country's total oil exports come from Kharg Island. And if the United States decides to fully invade, to completely seize Kharg Island, the regime is finished. It will be brought to its knees. You can already say that the regime is done for. I mean, let's look at the damage that the US and Israel have inflicted over the past 16 days on the world's main sponsor of terrorism. It's not very pleasant if you're part of the Iranian regime. But Kharg Island could be a turning point, my friends, and really speed up the end of the conflict.
CBN says, if you take Kharg away from Iran, that's the end of the regime. Do you think Trump would miss such an opportunity? Yes, I'll tell you a story a bit later that made Trump laugh for half a day, well, at least half an evening. Yes, well, the Iranians were thinking about this too, of course, about Kharg. And we don't know what they prepared. Maybe all kinds of mine traps, maybe missiles aimed at Kharg. We don't know what. I hope Mossad is aware. After the massive bombing of Kharg, Trump once again proposed that Iran surrender. But in Iran, it seems there is no center that provides concrete leadership. And it really seems that one group says one thing, while another at the same time does something completely opposite.
I think President Trump is concerned.
I think President Trump is concerned. By the way, he is giving Iran a last chance for unconditional surrender. It seems to me that he is concerned that if he destroys Iran's oil infrastructure, the Iranian economy will be in complete chaos, and that would be very bad for the Iranian people, whom President Trump wants to help so much. We don't want the entire Iranian economy to collapse, because that could lead to chaos, disorder, and madness. We want the Iranian people to be in the best possible situation. That's exactly what President Trump is saying. We don't want total disorder and chaos. If you destroy the oil infrastructure, you destroy Iran's economy. Strikes on oil facilities on Kharg Island destroy Iran's economy. But this is not an easy task. There are obviously high-precision bombers used by the United States, and none of these oil facilities were damaged during the massive U.S. Air Force raid on Kharg Island on Friday. But if you think about it and look ahead, what would be the best way to secure Kharg Island without destroying it and essentially just cut off any economic lifeline to the Iranian regime by capturing all of its oil industry on this one island? And again, Trump, almost 30 years ago, was already talking about this, by the way. For those who say, oh, he's just acting randomly, he doesn't know what he's doing. Really? Trump was talking about Iran back in 1980. Go to YouTube, look up the old recordings.
There are about 90 to 95 million people living in Iran. We don't want to leave them without a means of livelihood. We don't want people dying of hunger or migrating to other countries. We want to help the people of Iran. Our main goal is to disarm the Iranian theological dictatorship, but not at the cost of destroying the country's economy and people's lives.
Again, the military infrastructure already destroyed on.
Again, the military infrastructure was destroyed on Kharg Island in the Friday bombing. How difficult is it? I don't want to say occupy because that sounds like something long-term, but at least to land on this island, take control of all the oil, and then tell the regime, there is no way out of this. And even now it can be said that there is no way out for the regime. They are so weakened. And again, we'll break down the numbers, literally. But their only economic lifeline right now, Ayatollah, is basically on that island, about, again, 18.5 miles from the Iranian coast in the middle of the Persian Gulf. If you capture it, the regime itself will have no way forward. You capture it without completely destroying it, which means, God willing, there won't be any chaos in the streets, and the entire economy won't collapse.
So, almost 100% of Iran's navy has been destroyed, 100% of its air force has been destroyed, 100% of its air defenses, and the fortifications on the island have been broken and rendered useless, but drones and missiles are still flying. But even 10% or maybe even less than 10% of what was flying before on the first day remains. Neither the Russians nor the Chinese will have time to land there before us. Iran doesn't have the strength to hold the island, and they can't send reinforcements there. They have no means to do so. And they also have nothing to hit our landing ships with. Whether only the Marines will go in there or the Israelis as well, we don't know. I think it'll be just us. So Israel's involvement might provoke the Muslims, so most likely this part of the operation will be ours. Especially since Israel isn't trying to control the world's oil flows, but the U.S. is. Yes. Why do we need this? Look, China could stop supplying us with antibiotics and rare earth elements. I picked these two things, which I've already mentioned. They're pretty well known to everyone. We don't manufacture antibiotics in America. We buy everything 90% from China. And rare earth elements, so to speak, are almost all over the planet in China's hands. And if they cut off the supply of antibiotics, people will start dying in hospitals and at home. And if they cut off rare earth elements, then a lot of our electronics, including military electronics, simply can't be produced. So we need to have some kind of counterbalance so that if China decides to strangle us, we can strangle them first. They have energy and forests to supply China. Oil and gas are not produced in the China. That's how God arranged it. And we We have the largest oil reserves in the world, together with Venezuela. Much more, I think, than if you combine OPEC and Russia. That's what I think. Well, at least we definitely have more than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. And if Iranian oil, which will be coming from Iran, is also controlled by the U.S., then more than 20% of the oil supplied to China will be in the hands of the U.S. That means China can still blackmail us, but at the cost of stopping oil supplies for its own industry.
This is an invasion of mainland Iran. It's a strategic occupation, probably temporary, I think, of this key island, and this finally brings the regime to its knees. Its economic lifeline is completely cut off.
And what is Israel doing at this time? The IDF entered Lebanon and is creating a buffer zone at its northern border up to the Litani River, I believe, and that's about 25 kilometers from the border between Lebanon and Israel, I think. The Lebanese are happy. They have been suffering for many years under the rule of bandits who rob them and live at their expense. So the dream of the Lebanese, as I remember even from the times, let's say, of the 1970s, there was friendship with the Jews, tourism, trade, parties, cabarets, theaters, boutiques. That's how it was before the region was taken over by fanatics who, by the way, were financed by Iran and trained in Russia.
When I say the regime is finished, I mean that it is no longer the long-term massive military terrorist threat it once was, let me remind you, as the main state sponsor of terrorism in the world. The Iranian regime is finished. Their military forces here have been so heavily defeated. President Trump said today that they have been pushed back at least 10 years, maybe even more. But the regime itself, will it be able to withstand this storm? We are receiving reports that Mojtaba Khamenei, the successor to the supreme leader, as well as most of Iran's top leadership, have been killed. Mojtaba miraculously escaped death, as we hear, but he is in very bad condition. Even Defense Minister Pete Hegseth stated this on Friday, that Mojtaba is feeling very unwell. It's very sad to hear this about Mojtaba. But who is running things in Iran now? It seems to me it's the Revolutionary Guard. The IRGC, which is essentially the radical Iranian version of the SS. They see themselves as the radical vanguard, the guardians of this. And I believe that the most hardline circles of the IRGC, and by the way, they're all hardliners, but the most extreme ones are the ones making all the decisions now.
That's what I'm saying. The pragmatists from the cabinet would like to negotiate the terms of surrender. But those who know they have a trail of murders, executions, abductions of the opposition, and torture behind them, they know they can't surrender. They know they'll be treated the same way they treated the relatives of others by those who capture them. By the way, the position of the press in the U.S. is striking, and the position of the NATO countries, which we protected at our own expense and with the lives of our young people, giving them the opportunity for a normal life. It started with Spain. They won't invest 5% in defense. You're investing in your own defense, guys. Just because NATO is investing, no, we won't do it. They won't let American planes land at military bases on their territory. What? And they won't send their fleet then to Hormuz to protect the oil that's coming to them. Trump addressed major oil consumers such as China, France, Japan, South Korea, and Britain. He said that anyone else who wants to take part in protecting oil from attacks by Iranians, come here to escort your own oil to protect it from Iran's strikes. Trump said that several countries would like to take part in this project, but so far we don't see much enthusiasm. France has stated that it will not send its military and naval forces because they do not want to escalate the confrontation. Germany has questioned the need to bring additional forces into the region, saying that the U.S. and Israel can handle it without us. Australia also commented on this, stating that no one has contacted them directly. In other words, they were not on the list, they were there, and so on, and others as well. That's why they are not responding. Japan reported that they are still deciding, while China officially refused, stating that Iran has the right to do whatever it wants in Hormuz. The rest are still silent for now. Trump is not at all pleased with such a reaction. Listen to this.
We are talking to other countries about.
We are negotiating with other countries about working together to ensure order in the strait, and I believe we are getting a positive response. If that happens, great, and if not, that's okay too. For example, think about the medications produced by NATO. We are always ready to support NATO. We are helping them with Ukraine, and for many, it's like the idea is, if it doesn't affect us, we help. It would be interesting to see which country would help us in such a trivial matter as simply keeping the strait open. And by comparison, this is small. This is small because Iran hardly has the power.
And here's another explanation from Trump about relations with our NATO partners, whom we've been protecting at our own expense for many years.
We don't need anyone. We are the strongest nation in the world. We have the most powerful army in the world, unmatched by anyone. We don't need them. But it's interesting, in some cases, I almost do it not because we need them, but because I want to see how they react. Because for years I've said that if we ever need them, they won't be there. Not all of them, but they won't be there. I was very surprised by the United Kingdom because 2 weeks ago I asked them, why don't you send a few ships? And he really didn't want to do it. I said, you don't want to do this. We've been with you all this time. You're our oldest ally, and we spend a lot of money on, NATO and all these things to protect you. I mean, we protect them. We work with them on the issue of Ukraine. Ukraine is thousands of miles away across a vast ocean. We didn't have to do it, but we did it anyway. Well, Biden did it, I have to be honest with you. They played Biden for a fool on this trip.
But we worked with them in Ukraine. We don't need to work with them in Ukraine anymore.
And then they tell us that there's a mine ship somewhere here and they don't want to do anything. I think it's just terrible. No, I was really surprised. I told him that we requested the 2 aircraft carriers they had, but he didn't really want to do it. And then right after the war was basically over, they were destroyed, he said, I would like to send an aircraft carrier. I said, I don't need them after the war is over and won. I need it before the war starts. That's why I was very upset. Not exactly upset, rather. I was very dissatisfied. I'm satisfied with the United Kingdom. I think they will be involved, yes, possibly. But they need to be involved with more enthusiasm. For years, we have been protecting these countries with NATO, because NATO is us. You can ask Putin. Putin is afraid of us. He is not afraid of Europe at all. He is afraid of the United States of America and the army that I built during my first term.
Do you think he's wrong? When you use someone's services. When someone helps you in return, you should. Not that you have to, of course, you're not obligated, but it's like a sense of duty demands it. To come when someone turns to you for help. I think that right here and now. The discord in NATO began, and it was already not quite united, or let's say not united at all. Well, just now a black cat crossed their path. It ran by and flicked its tail, or maybe that's a mouse with its tail, but in this case, our black cat flicked its tail. In general, it seems that the alliance has outlived its purpose, and with the new balance of power and relationships, it may require dissolution and the start of new negotiations with those who truly support each other, not only for protection from Russia, but also for some other reasons. Yes. Let's say they have the same approach and understanding of freedom, which we clearly do not have with today's Europe. Naturally, when the U.S. captures Kharg, it will help stop all oil supplies from Iran. That means Iranian oil will no longer go anywhere without our knowledge. This is a complete stop and financial death for the regime. On the other hand, the U.S. will be able to significantly reduce strikes on oil tankers. The fact that Kharg Island is ours, and in addition, we will be escorting the tankers, will practically secure the passage of oil. At least, I hope so. On the other hand, our guys on the island and on the convoy ships will be much more exposed to strikes from Iranian drones or missiles, which of course they still have. This has already happened actually back in the 80s, if you remember, but without today's drones, which the Iranians can launch from the shores from any point. So Kharg is 30 miles from the shore, which isn't very far for missiles and drones. If you don't suppress all of Iran's capabilities to strike ships, you can expect them to try to kill as many American servicemen as possible. The goal, of course, is to create an explosive anti-war atmosphere in the United States. The capture and occupation of the island on the one hand could help restore the flow of oil, well, let's say, yes, not just oil, but also liquefied gas and other goods, through the strait, since a lot is transported there. But it could also heat up the situation, cause a split among coalitions, and lead to diplomatic tensions. But the main thing is still the deaths of American Marines if that happens. And gentlemen, how can there be no losses? There are almost always losses. Then coffins will be going to the U.S., and again, it's not about our war. Of course, it will really sour the mood here about what's happening there in Iran. Entering the war was a huge risk for the Trump administration, and now in no more than, in my opinion, 2 weeks, we will find out whether this risk will be justified or will lead to the defeat of the Republicans in the elections in November. That's it. Now let's figure out what is most likely to happen with this war, and in connection with it with the United States, or in the United States of America. Let's say that by the end of March, the U.S. fully controls the Strait of Hormuz. They have neutralized all possible, so to speak, points of resistance from Iran. That is, any possibility to fire at ships, at neighbors, at Israel, which could potentially lead to the fall of the regime. But then the sentiment which is currently against this war will turn to joy, that it was short, that we won it, that there weren't many casualties. Right now, about 10 people. Next, it's important for oil to return to a normal price, for gasoline to go down, and for the economy to start working again. This gives optimism on social media, which in fact will make people forget their fears of a long conflict, endless problems, coffins, and so on, and high prices as a result. Enthusiasm about freeing the world from the eternal threat of Iran, the atomic bomb, terrorism, and a return to normalization with oil. If there is a new government in Iran, then this will add to the enthusiasm about the end of the war. So entering the war was risky. A quick end is necessary, and it seems that the capture of Kharg Island is inevitable from my point of view. There is no hope for partners, and it's unclear who they are, where they are, whether they are our partners or not. But Iran gave us another surprise, one that will simply knock you off your feet. It seems that the newly elected leader of Iran, Ayatollah Saidov, is the son of an Ayatollah, but judge for yourself.
Oh my Allah, guys. I just came out of my missile closet and I've never felt so free and joyful and angry at myself, and now by tradition I have to jump off the building.
Let me explain what you just saw. I hope you know what the colors of the rainbow mean and why those who wear them are usually thrown off rooftops in Iran. Have you figured it out yet?
I have to tell you, even though we've already grown thick skin when it comes to news that can surprise us, this news just knocked us out. Gay Ayatollah, this gay Ayatollah turns out to be the new supreme leader of Iran. Gay. And Trump knows about it. And his reaction was simply priceless. And I'm old enough to remember when the former leader of Iran, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, said this.
Subtitles by Dima Torzok. In Iran, we don't have homosexuals like you do in your country. We don't have that in our country. Iran. In Iran.
We don't have such a thing. I don't know who even told you that we have it.
It's like in the Soviet Union, there was no sex. There just wasn't any, that's all. It's the same in Iran. There are no homosexuals, as the former president of Iran just explained to us.
We are shocked to learn that U.S. intelligence indicates that the Iranian supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, may be gay, and that his father, the late Ayatollah, was concerned about his suitability for this role for that reason. Trump couldn't contain his surprise and laughed loudly. He laughed and laughed during the briefing, according to sources. Others in the room also found it amusing and joined in the president's reaction, and one senior intelligence officer couldn't stop laughing about it for several days, according to an acquaintance. The Post newspaper, an intelligence community representative, and someone close to the White House described the shocking claim. All three sources claim that this incredible-sounding accusation is considered by U.S. intelligence agencies to be credible, not as false information intended to undermine the authority of Khamenei, 56, who was chosen to succeed his late father.
Of course, that's his right, his nature, his essence. But they threw homosexuals off rooftops, impaled them, killed, tortured, and cut them, all under the leadership of the father of our hero, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. But now, if this one survives, gays will be destroyed by his wise command. By the way, I was always told that gays are softer, more civilized, and less bloodthirsty than heterosexuals. I don't know why, but that's what I was always told. But this one is for the death of Jews, the death of Americans, the death of infidels, the death of those who wear hijabs incorrectly, the death of those who pray the wrong way, not to the right one, not at the right time, those who are softer than us, them. A wonderful, sweet, kind, compassionate person with the kind smile of a crocodile.
With a kind smile, he had a long-term sexual relationship with his childhood mentor. Anyone who has served in a Muslim country understands how grotesque and disgusting the tradition of ladyboys is. Ask anyone who has served in Afghanistan. Third, the source said intelligence showed he had an affair with a Khamenei family co-worker. Mojtaba, who was reported to have been wounded in the strike that killed his family, was making aggressive sexual advances toward the men caring for him, possibly under the influence of strong medication. U.S. intelligence agencies do not have photographic evidence of sexual attraction to men, but sources insisted that the information is reliable. All right. Moreover, one said that it was obtained from one of the most protected sources the government has. So, President Trump has been openly laughing about this for a long time. The fact that this was brought up at the highest level shows that there is some confidence in it. The alleged sexual orientation of Mojtaba has been whispered about in Iran ever since the helicopter crash killed the president in 2024. With the U.S. government, so this is pretty classified information, Trump previously dismissed Mojtaba as a lightweight and an unacceptable candidate for the position of Iran's leader, the new supreme leader. Many consider him someone who will not give in to U.S. demands and will not abandon the nuclear ballistic missile program.
So, what do you think of the news? To be clear, these rumors have been around a long time. But now, when Mojtaba is on drugs and can't control his behavior, he tried to hit on men. He was really hitting on the hospital staff caring for him, not just one, but several of them. Because of this, intelligence agencies around the world already know about it and have concluded that the rumors they thought were just rumors might actually be true. And it seems that this was one of the reasons why, Ali the father didn't want his son to hold any positions but just be in his office and help him without standing out too much. What a cruel joke the son played on the Ayatollah regime. Okay, with that, I think it was insanely funny today. Information, right? And at the very beginning about Tucker Carlson and that absolutely wonderful thing. So, ladies and gentlemen, to make sure you don't miss anything, first, subscribe and second, click, or ring the bells over there. And then first, you'll get all the necessary information on time, and second, the algorithm will know that many people like it and want to receive this information. They mostly look at the bell, and then the algorithm will spread this information further. If they don't ring the bells, it won't go any further, and we'll just stew in our own juice. Goodbye.